Hey everybody, it's me, Scott from Heroic Studios Gaming, your person for your Patreon. How's it going? This is a video. I actually made a video for The Last of Us a long time ago. But I remade it. I'm remaking it right now for November of 2021 to talk about The Last of Us. Because it actually fits more in the theme of what I am talking about today. I'm pretty sure I didn't release the Last of Us video. If I did, well, I guess you get to see my review of Last of Us the second time. I don't remember actually putting it out there. I think it just kept floating around after I made it, but let's jump into it. Today I was going to talk about, this is a video game review because there are enough weeks in the month of November to be able to put together a book review, a RPG review, and a video game review. I'm not super big on I used to love to play video games. I'm not super big on them now, which is why I don't do a lot of them, but I do play them, and I have played them in the past. And this one, where I cover Last of Us, and actually kind of a little bit of Last of Us 2, comes back from my days in college. Let me actually just explain a little bit, because I have to do multiple things at the same time. But back when I was in college, I was in a fraternity, and the fraternity house had multiple televisions and multiple game systems because there were just a bunch of dudes hanging out in a house together. And so we obviously sort of had these TVs and these video game systems, and a lot of us had time on the weekends if we didn't have part-time jobs that took up our whole weekend, which we usually didn't. And since none of us were married or anything, it wasn't like we had kids or stuff to worry about. So we just kind of, whenever we weren't doing homework and or at our jobs, we would sort of play video games. And Last of Us was one of them that came up during that same time frame. I believe it came out right in, I think it was 2012 or something, maybe 2013. But it was definitely the time when I had more time to do whatever. And in this case, I didn't actually watch any of my fraternity brothers play the game because I wanted to play it myself. So I waited until they were done, and then I jumped in and played it. What I'm going to show you is not actually footage over here. In a moment, it will not actually be footage of me playing the game, but will actually be footage from the game that I just sort of stole off the internet. Let's just go ahead and throw it up now so it can be going in the background. Well, bam! There it is. There's Last of Us. If you haven't heard of Last of Us by this point in time, I don't know, maybe you live under a rock. Not entirely sure why you wouldn't have heard of one of the greatest survival zombie games that's ever existed, but here we are. But Last of Us was made for the PlayStation, and PlayStation specifically, and it is actually a pretty good game. It is a sort of post-apocalyptic zombie survival game, but one of the things about the game that made it quite interesting was that it wasn't entirely about zombies. As you see here, Joel just took down humans, and you can hear, if it's not too loud, the bandits sort of shouting. But Joel himself was actually a bandit at one point and was sort of a redeemed bandit who's on this mission now to sort of save humanity after having been a sort of guy who robbed from those that had. But the game featured a lot of cool gameplay elements. It featured a great story involving our main characters, who are humans trying to get to a certain place. Apparently, this main character, Ellie, she's sort of introduced relatively early on as having potentially the cure to the zombie virus, and so they're trying to get her to a particular outpost. And I'm not going to spoil the game for you, but that's pretty much the mission. Joel is on a mission to get her there, and Joel is that guy there. Who's basically your main character, and you spend most of the game playing as him, but sometimes you get to take on Ellie's point of view. But a lot of the game is doing a bunch of stuff while Ellie sort of follows along and tries not to die. The one thing about the game that was quite interesting was actually the zombies, and they actually had this game had a tremendous impact on the creation of Maximum Apocalypse, because the various different zombies that you come across, the clickers, the random sort of walker things, those were all sort of things that I thought about when we were making the monsters for the RPG. Now, granted, some of those things existed in the board game, but the lurkers, for example, are borrowed from Last of Us 2, with these particular types of zombies that sort of hide in the shadows. And when you shine lights on them and stuff, they try to hide away from you. They try to run away rather than just attack you outright like most of the other zombies. And so obviously those influences came into the RPG when we were making it. Same thing with the clickers here. Sound is a major factor with the clickers, and so and in this game as a whole, there's a lot of different ways to sort of mitigate sound stuff, where you can throw bricks or throw bottles or things like that to sort of throw off where people think you are and distract them. And that was something I thought about when I was making the RPG, and that's why there's this enemy attraction gauge, right? This is some of the stuff that was sort of coming up when I was thinking, is that a necessary factor? How well did that make it seem like survival, like sort of made the survival difficult in in this game, as well as other sort of things from the genre as a whole. I wouldn't say that there's a lot of tremendously super original ideas that pop up in this game other than the story itself, versus say something like The Walking Dead. But there were these great ideas that sort of come about, and they presented stuff to me that I hadn't thought about necessarily in the same kind of light. And so then after like later watching more zombie movies or whatever, I see where they pulled stuff from. So that's a thing. But otherwise, overall, this game was quite fun. Now, this is Last of Us 1. Last of Us 2, I played sort of in I didn't play the whole thing. I just played bits of it from borrowing from people who had the PlayStations that I could play the game on, because I don't own one myself. And so I didn't get to play all of Last of Us 2. However, after like getting a decent amount of the story sort of figured out, I decided to go ahead and watch an entire Twitch stream of somebody playing through the whole game, and I actually enjoyed it quite a bit, like being an observer without actually doing the gameplay. Though I will say that there is something that gets lost when you're observing on Twitch. Then you actually like have, when you have the frustration from, I'm gonna go ahead and mute them because they're talking, when you don't have the sort of having to button mash and stuff to get past the zombies, have to deal with the challenges and puzzles yourself. So it's a little different when you watch it on Twitch, a little abstract, and sometimes you're like frustrated. You're like, no, just do the thing, when they fail over and over again doing the thing. But one of the cool aspects of this game is also the puzzles. So there's ways around stuff, and there's like, it's kind of like, say, Resident Evil in its style of like, you got to go find a key from a place and then go unlock a door. It's not quite like that. But it does have some elements like that, especially in the second one. There's a lot of like, go here, go there, go here, go there, go do these things. But like, it unlocks cutscenes, and some of the best parts of this game is actually the voice acting and the dialogues, which is why they're making it into a movie here soon. So I don't have much to say beyond that. The first game is a really good setup. The second game story is kind of like, I wish there was a little bit more in between the first and second game, but I get why they did what they did. I wish there was a little bit more story, because the first game sort of ends with this pretty intense situation. And like I said, I'm not going to spoil it, but it does end that way, and it doesn't sort of pick up right after that. There's like years have passed for the second one, but it's fine. The story was great. The story of the second one focuses a lot more on the people, the survivor story aspect, but that's something that like even The Walking Dead does, where it doesn't focus on the monsters per se; it focuses on the survivor story, and that'll actually be kind of a trend when I talk more about zombies again. When I talk about Outbreak Undead and The Walking Dead, that seems to be the trend with zombie stories in general, with zombie movies and things. It's not really about the zombies. Like 28 Days Later focused a little bit on the rage zombies, which most of the zombies in this game are rage zombies, by the way. They're humans who've been infected with a virus that causes them to sort of, not a virus per se, it's a parasite. It's like a fungus that sort of grows into them. So it takes over their mind. It's the same, sort of the idea is it's the same viruses that does that to make zombie ants. It affects humans. So somehow it transitions into humans, and then humans become these sort of half fungal zombie things. But like 28 Days Later kind of focuses on the monsters a little bit, but also the story of the survivors trying to survive. But things like Walking Dead and like Outbreak Undead, the RPG, and Last of Us, they really don't care about the zombies at all. They're more like an environmental hazard. So the story, like the idea is that the story is the how the survivors are going about their day-to-day kind of stuff in this post-apocalyptic world. And like here we've got a bunch of bandits, and they're doing a bunch of things. They're sort of scavenging, and Joel and Ellie are trying to hide from them and not get caught, not get cannibalized, as it were. But that seems to be the theme in a lot of these games, or a lot of these stories and movies and stuff. And so when you start to realize that, that's why it takes you back away from the monsters as a whole, and that's why if you read the monster manual, or not the monster manual, the Game Master Guide for Maximum Apocalypse, I talked about how the enemies are just obstacles to keep someone from getting the goal. The point of the story should not be the monster itself. It's not like a boss fight. Like in Dungeons & Dragons, you tend to have like a boss fight at the end of the dungeon, right? There's a bunch of little mini bosses that you fight along the way, and then eventually you get to like the treasure room, and it's being guarded by a gold dragon. In Maximum Apocalypse, we tried to make sure that everyone understood that the dragon at the end of the tunnel is not the goal. Killing the dragon is not your goal. You don't really you get some XP from it, but it's not the same kind of thing. You're just trying to survive. And so the dragon at the end of the tunnel in Maximum Apocalypse, say like the giant zombie queen or whatever, the goal of that character, that enemy, is to be an obstacle to the survival of the character, not like the end, like focus point of the whole story. So these kinds of games were a perfect example of that, why that's important to know. And when I played it, that was sort of the lesson I was getting away from it, is that this story was the most important thing. And like running around and finding stuff was cool, but it wasn't really the focus point. Whereas, say, in Far Cry 4, which I played just a little bit after it, or Tomb Raider, which I was playing at roughly the same time, that those tended to be the action sequences itself was actually the purpose of the game, like having these cool action sequences. And there is a story, sure, but it's mostly have these really cool action sequences and these missions and things. Whereas Last of Us is like, these are just things that are in the way of the survivors trying to get to their objective. And that's what Walking Dead is all about too, right? Walking Dead is this, they're just trying to survive, and the zombies are just environmental hazards, much the same as sandstorms or like a tornado, right? And that's how you should really treat monsters in Maximum Apocalypse as well. So this has been my philosophical discussion on Maximum Apocalypse, rotating around Last of Us and Last of Us 2. I could probably do a review on Last of Us 2, but like I said, I didn't actually play that one. I just sort of watched the story. I played parts of it, but I didn't play the whole thing. And so I wouldn't want to necessarily give it a full review, but I did watch the story played out. But I would give the Last of Us series 2 thumbs if you ever get a chance to play them. This is that's the first one. It kind of feels old school. You can see it kind of looks a little old school. They did remaster it, but it is kind of old school because it's a few years old. It's not like the original Tomb Raider, like old school. That's some real old stuff. But this is like, the graphics aren't necessarily capable. They're not quite up to what they would be now, per se. But that's not bad. Like, everyone can go back and play sort of retro games. It's like trying to play The Witcher 1, right? Like, it'd be the same kind of concept. But the second one is definitely up to snuff as far as graphics go. And so that's it. 2 thumbs up from me. Check it out if you ever get a chance. If you have a PlayStation or whatever, then you could totally play it. They don't have it on Steam, unfortunately, so you'd never be able to play it there. And that's just how that be. Other than that, I just got another video to make for you guys later. Not today, not tomorrow, but sometime in the near future, so that I can get it up and have it ready for you next week. So, all right, I will go ahead and end this then, and I will talk to you later.